Hi, my name's Tom. I'm Organic Marketing Manager at Adido. Welcome to part 2 of this content marketing video series. So we've already talked about brainstorming in part 1. So now hopefully you've got your ideas, you've got some great ideas and you're ready to get things off the ground and start creating that content. So what I'm going to talk to you today about is sort of structuring that and optimizing it for the search engines. So the first thing you're going to want to do, just to give you a bit of direction, is to do some keyword research. Now I know this is something you'll hear about in SEO all the time, and it is no less important now than it was 5-10 years ago. Your keywords are obviously going to need to be within the piece. So say if you're doing a piece on open jaw flights, then you can go into the Google keyword planner, type in open jaw flights, and it will start to spit out a few more keywords, whether that's cheap open jaw flights or open jaw airline tickets, that kind of thing. And that'll just give you an idea of how people are actually searching, because it's easy to get a bit blinded in your industry about how people say things and how people talk and how people search. So the keyword planner is definitely a good place to start. You can also just use Google Suggest, so try Googling that term yourself and Google will come up with a list of suggestions saying people also search for this, and then that will show you a few more terms. And finally, a tool that I love to use is something called Answer the Public. So this is where you can input your keyword and it will spit out all of the questions people are asking about that keyword online. So whether that's how to book open jaw flights, are open jaw flights more expensive, that kind of thing. So then you can directly answer those questions that you know people are asking. This is something that's really great as well if you're looking to optimize for voice search, because people are very conversational with voice search, and so they'll be asking those specific questions. If you can provide the answer, then you've got one up on the competition. So when we look at actually creating the piece of content, what we like to do at Adido is start by building out a skeleton of the piece. So you don't want to just dive straight in, because you want to make sure that there's some order to your content, and you want to share your skeleton with your team so that they know how it's going to be structured. So to start the skeleton, get your hook, get your title right first. This is going to be a very important thing for you, because it's going to be the first thing people read, and it could be make or break of whether they want to continue. So get the headline right, maybe throw a statistic in there. Sometimes it's good to put the date in there so people know that it's really relevant at the time of it being published. And just make sure that it's attracting the eye. So then you're going to go straight into your introduction, where this is going to introduce the piece. This is also make or break. You want to make this hard hitting. So like I say, if you've got that big important statistic, that big important finding that's come out of your piece, hit them with it straight away, and then that's going to hopefully hook them in and keep them reading. You want to structure the piece chronologically. So then this is where you need to think about, how am I going to reveal information slowly throughout the piece? Maybe start with what the subject is you're talking about, then what the benefits are, how people are doing this in real life, and so on. So have a think about how it's going to read as if it were a story. And then make sure you separate each key point out with different headers. Not only are header tags good for SEO, but they're also good, again, at breaking up the content. People can be intimidated if there's just one long continuous essay, and there might just be a particular section that they want to get to. So break it up with headers. Use graphs, charts, images throughout the piece to illustrate your points, and that makes it a lot more hard hitting. And then of course conclude the piece perhaps with a bullet point list of your main points, because you'll get skim readers that perhaps just want those quick, easy tips that they get at the end. So in terms of optimization of the piece, now there's a rule with SEO that you should always be writing for humans and then optimize afterwards. Google knows how people search, and while Google has its algorithms, it still wants the content to be written for humans. And if it's not, Google will know, your users will know, and no one's going to like it. So write for humans first, optimize afterwards. So the first place to start with optimization is to create a good meta title and description. So these are what appear in the search engine results pages, and they're quite important to be optimized, especially the titles with your relevant keywords, because it's Google's sort of first indicator of what this piece is about and will help you rank better. Earlier on, I obviously mentioned that you want to be splitting things up with different headers. Make sure that those headers have got header tags. So the title of your piece should have a H1 tag. Then from there, subheadings, H2s, and then subheadings, H3s. You'd be surprised the amount of times I see people that get the structure of H1, 2, 3 wrong. This is something that's just going to confuse Google. So make sure that H1, 2, 3 are in the right order. So we talked about you're going to need to do your keyword research. So where are you going to put your keywords? Now, you've got to be careful because keyword stuffing is obviously against Google guidelines, and you could potentially get penalized for it, or you're not going to rank very well if you're just trying to stuff keywords in there. But they do need to be there. So the places that I suggest to put them would be, again, in your header tags, your meta title and description, in the URL of the piece, in the body text of the piece, and within any image alt tags. So it needs to fit naturally as well. Google's quite good at understanding things in it from a semantics point of view. So if you've got a keyword that doesn't really fit, say if your keyword is holidays Cornwall, that could be quite hard to squeeze into a sentence. So if you need to say holidays in Cornwall, Google's going to understand. So don't get too hung up on the specific keyword. Next thing you want to think about is your image optimization. So images need to preferably be as small as possible because larger images take longer to load and site speed is a big ranking factor. So we say that we prefer to keep images below 100 kilobytes. There's tools such as tiny PNG that you can use to shrink images before you upload them, but don't sacrifice the quality of the image. So if it starts to look grainy, then you've probably gone too far. And as I mentioned before, the image alt tag is what Google will read to understand what that image is. So if you've got the keyword within your image alt tag, then you're onto a winner. The next thing I want to talk about is link architecture. If you want Google to know that this piece of content you've created is important to you, you need to make that obvious by linking to it from several of your key pages on your website. If you're not linking to it, then Google's going to think it's not important to you, so why is it important to the user? So if it's a brand new piece of content, perhaps get a banner on your home page, link to it from relevant service pages, blog pages, etc. But also link out from the piece to your other pages. So if it is a piece about the best snow on ski holidays, then link out to your different ski resorts or link out to your blogs on ski resorts. So it keeps people moving on that journey. And it also helps Google when crawling to understand the relevance of the piece. Don't be afraid to link externally to external websites as well. I hear a lot of people say that they're scared to do that, they don't want to lose the user. I mean, obviously you're not going to link to your competitor's site, but if there's maybe a relevant news article or something around the piece that you're writing that's on a really high authority site, then that can actually improve the ranking of your own piece. And of course, you're going to want to build backlinks to that piece, which is something that we'll come on to in part 3 of this series. Another ranking factor, which is pretty obvious, is going to be spelling and grammar. Google knows if your piece is full of bad grammar, misspelt words, and so on. And this is, unsurprisingly, actually a ranking factor because if the content is low quality, it's not going to rank very high. So make sure you've got someone proofreading it, you're spell checking it, and everything's tight. So now you're going to want to upload it to your website, and like I say, make sure it's easy to find. Make sure that there's different locations that people can find it on the site. You're going to want to add it to your sitemap, unless of course it is a gated download. So if it's a white paper that you've created for lead generation purposes, so you want people to input their email address first, then make sure you add it to your robots.txt file. That way it won't be indexed, people can't find it organically through Google, they have to input their details to find it. And then you want to request indexing within Search Console. So this will just speed the process of Google indexing the piece up. So it's you literally telling Google, look, this is on my site now, can you index it? And then of course you want to track the relevant keywords. If you're trying to rank for certain words with this piece, then make sure you're tracking those keywords to see whereabouts you are. Now, that's sort of how you're going to optimize the piece itself, but you still need to take care of the rest of your website. And there's a lot of different technical SEO elements that you can talk about here, whether it's about reducing your crawl errors, making sure you haven't got any redirect chains, improving site speed, getting the schema markup right, making sure you've got a custom 404 page. There's a lot to talk about here, so it's probably another video itself. So if the technical elements of your website aren't right, then your piece is going to have a much lower chance of ranking in the long run. That's been part 2 of this video series on content marketing. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you want to get in touch with us, then just please do and see the details below.